My name is Emma, and I'm 25 years old, living in Phoenix, Arizona. I never imagined that my own family would abandon me when my contractions started during our road trip to my sister, Victoria's award ceremony in Los Angeles. My mother looked at me with cold eyes and told my father to pull over on a deserted stretch of Interstate 10. She made their priorities crystal clear. We cannot be late. Victoria needs peace and quiet. Your timing is terrible. They drove away, leaving me doubled over in agony on the roadside. Growing up as the middle child between Victoria and my younger brother, Tyler was like existing in permanent shadows. Victoria was 4 years older, blessed with our mother's grace and our father's sharp mind. She was their shining star from the moment she was born. I still remember my 9th birthday when my parents arrived 3 hours late because Victoria had a minor ballet recital. They missed my art show completely, but the following day our house was filled with neighbors celebrating Victoria winning first place in a regional debate tournament. When I brought home perfect grades, my father would briefly acknowledge them before asking Victoria about her latest project. When I won first place in a statewide poetry competition during my senior year at Desert Ridge High School, my mother's response was, "That is nice, but did you hear Victoria got accepted to Stanford?" Tyler and I developed an unspoken alliance of understanding. As the youngest, he knew what it meant to live in Victoria's shadow. College was my escape. For the first time, I was judged on my own merits. I thrived in my classes, made genuine friends who valued me, and gradually built my self-confidence. In my sophomore year, I met Marcus in an American literature class. He was quiet but thoughtful, with kind eyes that actually saw me. Marcus came from a warm, boisterous family who welcomed me immediately. The first time I joined them for dinner, his mother asked me about my interests and actually listened to my answers. After graduation, Marcus and I moved in together. When Marcus proposed after 3 years together, my parents' response was lukewarm at best. "Are you sure you were ready for that commitment?" my mother asked. When I discovered I was pregnant a year later, Marcus was overjoyed. My mother's first response was, "Well, I suppose it was bound to happen eventually." No congratulations, no excitement. Just practical concerns and thinly veiled disappointment. The final straw came when Victoria announced that the ceremony for her award would be held the weekend of my due date. Instead of acknowledging the conflict, my parents immediately began making plans to attend, assuming I would understand that this was too important to miss. When I pointed out that I was about to give birth, my mother actually suggested that first babies are usually late anyway, and I should join them on the 5-hour road trip to the ceremony. Against my better judgment and Marcus's concerned objections, I agreed to go. Part of me still desperately wanted their approval. The morning of the road trip dawned bright and clear. Marcus helped me into the car when my parents arrived, his worry evident. "Call me if anything happens," he insisted. "I love you both," he added, placing a gentle hand on my swollen belly. Victoria had the entire back seat to herself, surrounded by garment bags. I was wedged into the middle row beside her luggage, my pregnant body crammed uncomfortably against the door. Around the 2-hour mark, I felt the first twinge. 20 minutes later, another one came, slightly stronger. "Could we stop at the next rest area?" I asked. "I need to use the bathroom." My mother sighed heavily. "We just stopped an hour ago. Cannot you hold it?" By the 3rd hour of the journey, the contractions were coming every 12 minutes and impossible to hide. "I think I might be in labor," I finally admitted. "That is not funny," my mother said. Victoria immediately threw her hands up in exasperation. "Are you serious right now? This is my weekend." Then, while trying to shift positions, I felt a warm gush between my legs. "My water just broke," I announced. The car swerved slightly as my father processed this information. "You need to take me to a hospital right now," I said. My mother turned around, her face conflicted. The nearest hospital is probably back the way we came. We would miss the reception entirely. Cannot you just hold it in a little longer, Victoria? Asked, seemingly serious. We could go to the ceremony and then find a hospital afterward. For God's sake, Walter, pull over, my mother finally instructed. She is being too loud. My father guided the car onto the shoulder of the highway, a desolate stretch with nothing but desert on either side. Look, my mother said, the ceremony venue is only an hour away. Victoria needs to be at this reception. You cannot be serious, I gasped. My father stepped out and retrieved my overnight bag, setting it beside me on the gravel shoulder. There is a town a few miles that way, he said, pointing down the highway. Someone will stop and help you. You cannot leave me here, I was sobbing now. My mother leaned out the window. Do not be so dramatic, Emma. This is your sister's big moment, and you are trying to ruin it like you always do. The last thing I saw as they pulled away was Victoria's face in the back window, quickly replaced by her rehearsing her acceptance speech. I stood on the side of the highway, a contraction building, as I watched my family's car disappear. I had never felt so alone or betrayed in my entire life. The reality hit me like a physical blow. I was alone on a rural highway in active labor, with no phone and no transportation. I dragged my suitcase toward a cluster of Joshua trees, offering the only shade in sight. I took stock of my resources. My suitcase contained clothes, toiletries, and prenatal vitamins. My purse held my dead phone, wallet, first aid kit, protein, bar, and water bottle. I found the emergency birth plan my doctor had insisted I carry. At the time, it had seemed unnecessary. Now it might save our lives. The contractions were coming about 6 minutes apart now. I tried standing at the roadside, waving frantically when a truck appeared in the distance, but it sped past without slowing. The contractions were definitely closer together now, perhaps 5 minutes apart. I tried to focus on the practical. I removed my cardigan and laid it on the ground as a makeshift blanket. Between contractions, I arranged my makeshift birthing area as best I could. The contractions were now relentless, the pressure overwhelming. My body was telling me to push, and I had no choice but to listen. Please, I whispered to the empty air. Please help us. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, I prepared to bring my child into the world alone at the side of a road. Where my own family had abandoned me, the world narrowed to sensation as my body took control. You can do this, I told myself. Women have been doing this forever. I positioned myself against the base of the largest tree, my legs bent and spread. As the next wave built, I bore down with it, pushing with all my strength. The pressure was immense, like nothing I had ever experienced. Between contractions, my mind flashed back to birthing classes. When the baby's head begins to crown, try to pant instead of push. I reached down and felt the top of my baby's head just beginning to emerge. This was happening right here, right now. The next contraction brought the ring of fire, an intense, burning sensation. I remembered to pant, giving my body time to stretch taut with the next contraction. I felt the head emerge completely. I reached down to make sure the umbilical cord was not wrapped around the neck. It was not. One more big push, I whispered. The next contraction came almost immediately, and I pushed with everything I had. Suddenly, my baby was fully born, slipping into my waiting hands. A girl. I had a daughter. For one terrifying moment, she was silent. Please cry, I begged. As if she heard me, she gave a small cough and then let out a lusty wail. Hello, Grace, I said, the name we had chosen suddenly perfect for this resilient little miracle. I am your mom. We did it. I used my nail scissors to cut the umbilical cord after tying it off with a shoelace. I cleaned Grace as best I could and wrapped her in my clean T-shirt as I sat there holding my daughter. Headlights appeared in the distance. Unlike before, they slowed as they approached. A pickup truck pulled onto the shoulder. A woman stepped out, approaching cautiously. "Are you okay?" she called, then stopped short as she took in the scene. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Did you just—" "Yes," I answered simply. "We need to get to a hospital." The woman, Miranda, did not waste time with questions. "I am a nurse," she explained as she helped me into her truck. "You both look good, all things considered, but we need to get you checked out properly." As Miranda drove toward the nearest hospital, I finally allowed myself to process what had happened. My own parents had abandoned me in active labor. They had chosen my sister's award ceremony over the safety of their daughter and grandchild. The hospital emergency entrance blazed with light as Miranda pulled up. Within seconds, medical staff surrounded the truck. A nurse carefully took Grace from my arms while an orderly helped me onto a gurney. The next hour passed in a blur of examinations and procedures. Dr. Chun confirmed that despite the circumstances, I had managed a textbook delivery. Grace was pronounced healthy at 6 pounds, 8 ounces. Marcus arrived less than 2 hours later, bursting through the door with wild eyes, having broken every speed limit. "Emma," he rushed to my bedside. "I have been going out of my mind." His gaze fell on Grace, sleeping peacefully. "Is that ... Your daughter?" I confirmed. "Grace Elizabeth." He approached with reverent steps, gently touching Grace's tiny hand. When she reflexively grasped it, his eyes filled with tears. "She is perfect," he breathed. I told him everything, watching his face cycle through disbelief, horror, and finally, cold fury. "They left you there?" His voice was dangerously quiet. Before we could discuss it further, my phone lit up with an incoming call. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I answered, putting the phone on speaker. "Emma," my mother's voice sounded cheerful. "How are you doing? Did you make it to a hospital?" The casual tone left me speechless. "Yes, I finally managed. No thanks to you." "The baby came on the roadside where you left me." A brief silence. "What? Already? Not this one." "I delivered her myself." No doctor, no medication, no support. Another pause. "Well, congratulations. Is she healthy?" The disconnect was almost laughable. Marcus looked like he might break the phone. "Mrs. Thompson," he interjected, his voice tight with rage. "Your daughter could have died. Your granddaughter could have died." "Marcus, please," my mother replied dismissively. There was a town nearby. We knew someone would stop eventually. Eventually, Marcus's voice rose. "Do you hear yourself? What is done, my father's voice came on the line. "We will come by the hospital tomorrow. Victoria wants to meet her niece. After what you all did, you think you get to just waltz in here like nothing happened. I need time to process this. I will let you know when I am ready to see you." I ended the call before they could respond. A hospital social worker explained that abandoning a woman in active labor constituted criminal negligence. The hospital was required to report it to authorities. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked softly. "I am thinking that I have power here for once. I get to decide how this plays out. I want them to understand exactly what they did. But mostly, I want to protect Grace from ever feeling the way I did growing up. Then that is what we will do," Marcus promised. Together, the hospital room door swung open the next morning to reveal my parents and Victoria. My mother carried a small gift bag while my father held Victoria's award. Victoria was scrolling through her phone, barely glancing up. We had discussed our approach extensively. I felt calm, centered in a way I never had when confronting my family before. "Her name is Grace," I said evenly. "She was born on the side of Interstate 10 yesterday." I delivered her entirely alone after you abandoned me in active labor. An uncomfortable silence followed. We have been over this, my father sighed. We knew someone would come along eventually. Not because of anything you did, Marcus interjected. Emma could have hemorrhaged. The baby could have been in distress. They could have died. Something snapped inside me, solidifying my resolve completely. I reached for my phone and pressed play on a recording. My mother's voice filled the room. We knew someone would stop eventually. There's no need for this attitude. I stopped the recording and looked up at their shocked faces. I recorded her call yesterday. I have recorded this conversation too. Have also given a full statement to the hospital about being abandoned in active labor. What you did constitutes criminal negligence at minimum. The hospital is legally obligated to report it to authorities. Their expressions shifted from shock to alarm. You would not, my mother breathed. Think about what this would do to our reputations, my father said urgently. To Victoria's career, I want acknowledgement, I said simply. Real acknowledgement of what? You did and why it was wrong. I want you to understand that your actions could have resulted in the death of your daughter and granddaughter. I want an apology, a real one. And I want change. Concrete changes in how you treat me, Marcus, and Grace moving forward. And if we do all that, my mother asked cautiously, then I will tell the hospital I do not wish to pursue charges. But this is your only chance. If you ever again treat me or my family as an afterthought, we will be done permanently. Something in my voice must have convinced them of my sincerity. Because the atmosphere shifted perceptibly, what followed was the first genuine conversation I could remember having with my parents. They listened as I described the terror and pain of being abandoned. My father wept openly. I do not know how we convinced ourselves it was acceptable to leave you there, he admitted. There is no excuse. Even Victoria eventually acknowledged her role. I have always been the center of attention, she said quietly. I never thought about what that meant for you. We established boundaries that day, clear expectations for how we would interact moving forward. The first year was difficult, old habits died hard. But there was also genuine effort, particularly from my father. Now, 2 years later, we had reached a place of cautious optimism. Not perfect, but functional in a way our family had never been. Before **** epilogo 10 minutos 1300. Palabras. **** Grace's second birthday party was in full swing in our backyard. Our daughter toddled between guests, her dark curls bouncing, accepting cuddles with a shy smile that melted my heart every time. I glanced across the yard to where my parents were chatting with Marcus's family. The path to this moment had been neither straight nor easy, but we had all traveled it with more honesty than I would have thought possible. Later, my mother approached me with a small wrapped box. Inside was a delicate silver locket with a photograph of Grace on one side and one of me as a baby on the other. I have been doing a lot of thinking, she said nervously, about what you said in the hospital. I found this picture of you recently, and I realized I could not remember much about you at this age. I do not want to make the same mistake with Grace. Victoria dropped down beside me on the porch steps. She is amazing, she said, nodding toward Grace. Smart like her mom. I have been offered a teaching position, she said suddenly, at the community college. I want to be a good aunt to her, she added. The kind who shows up for dance recitals and school plays. As the evening settled around us, I reflected on the journey of the past 2 years. From that terrifying moment on the highway to this peaceful birthday celebration, I had traversed a landscape of pain, rage, forgiveness, and ultimately growth. In giving birth to Grace under those impossible circumstances, I had also given birth to a new version of myself. A version that would never again accept being treated as less than mama. Grace called, running toward me with arms outstretched. I scooped her up, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. In this embrace was everything I had ever wanted, and everything I was now determined to protect. The cycle was broken, the healing had begun, and the road ahead stretched before us full of possibility. What moments in your life have forced you to stand up for yourself? Have you ever had to draw a hard boundary with family for your own well-being? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they deserve better. Remember, sometimes the most difficult moments in our lives become the catalyst for our greatest transformations. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the strength to create the life and relationships you truly